Welcome to The Influential Nonprofit. I'm your host, I'm Maryanne, and today we're going to talk about something very important to nonprofit leaders and fundraisers, and that is understanding our nervous system and how it can dictate some of the responses that we give, especially that we can give to donors. Now, friend, you may be thinking, really, this is a thing? And it is a thing. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories to help you understand this, and then we're going to get into it. Now, the other day, a letter came in the mail, and it looked very official, and it was from a court, judicial, circuit court, and it had mine and my husband's name on it, and immediately my body went out from underneath me. I was like, no, what is this? What is this? One of my kids was in some legal trouble. Like, is somebody suing us? I just, all of these thoughts flooded my head. And I'm like, what is this? And I open it up, and it's just a letter that the court sends to verify, because we have guardianship over my youngest daughter. But my whole body just went, whoo. And that is my nervous system lighting up. That's what it feels like. When this happens to you, when you are going into a big meeting, when somebody confronts you, when you get something in the mail or you open up that email and your whole body lights up, that's your nervous system. And our nervous system often can dictate our responses to things if we don't understand what it is and where it's coming from and how to move through it. So, I had an experience over the last few months of having a friend who was going through a mental health crisis. And during that time, I was very hypervigilant. I was felt really connected to the situation. I was constantly checking my phone. If I didn't hear back, I was inventing stories. And that was my nervous system getting activated. And this happened to me in the past. My son was going through a mental health crisis about 3 or 4 years ago. Everything was hypervigilant. Every call, your heart would start to race. Everything, I don't say everything, but a lot of my life had my nervous system highly activated. But your nervous system is designed to keep you safe, not necessarily to tell you the truth of a situation. And yet we often use our nervous system as if it is telling us the truth. When you learn to recognize the difference between activation and intuition, you can become calmer. You can become a calmer leader, a better communicator, a stronger fundraiser, and a healthier human. Remember, you set the temperature. Your nervous system is contagious. Other people can pick up on it. So when you have calm confidence, people around you will tap into that. They will connect to that. They will learn from that. And their temperature is going to lower too. Okay. So let's talk about, the ways that your nervous system can work in your life. Have you ever been absolutely convinced something was wrong, only to discover your nervous system was filling in the blanks? Has anybody ever said to you, we need to talk, and your whole body lights up somehow? And you're trying to think of, what did I do? What did I say? What's going on? What could they possibly be telling me about? It's a horrible feeling. A couple of years ago, I was on a retreat, and my coach at the time, Michelle, had something she wanted to disclose to us group. So she asked us all to come into this. It was like a big home theater space. Come into this space. And we're all sitting in this space. And every single one of us is trying to figure out what she's going to tell us. And we all were making up stories. She's quitting. Somebody, said there was a dispute. She's pregnant. All this. Everyone was just making up all this stuff because our brains and our bodies don't like uncertainty. And our nervous system would rather make up a story and have it be wrong rather than have something unexpected happen. So within the 2 minutes that it took for us to sit in this room and her to, I got a thumbs up, for her to disclose what was going on, I think about 1,000 stories were created because we didn't know what was coming next, and our body, our nervous system got activated, and we were filling in the blanks. So when your board member says, hey, we need to talk, and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? When you're, a friend says something, your nervous system gets activated. So here's the first part of this is your nervous system has one job and one job only. And it's not happiness, it's not truth, it's not wisdom, it's safety. That's it. It constantly asks, am I safe? Am I accepted? Am I about to lose something? Should I prepare for danger? Your nervous system isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you alive, right? When, I always use the example of, when the salesperson walks across the car lot towards you and you're like, oh my God, am I safe? Is this okay? It mistakes uncertainty for danger. And this is evolutionarily because, thousands of years ago, our daily existence wasn't guaranteed. There was a lot more threats to the world, so our nervous system was a lot more activated. The world has become safer, and yet our nervous system can still get activated. So, a bear running at you could be the same as a car salesperson walking across a parking lot towards you. If you're not confident about the selling process, you don't feel safe. You think you might lose something. Your nervous system is trying to prepare you for danger. And it's going to prepare you for a problem that might never happen rather than be surprised by something. So it's on alert, it's on guard. And so when something like that happens, something unexpected, something difficult, you get some feedback that sort of rattles you and your nervous system lights up. Its only job is to keep you safe. And here's the next part. Then we create stories to fill in the blanks because our brains hate missing information. Like in the story I was telling you about Michelle, we literally had 2 minutes of unknowing, right? 2 minutes of not knowing what the disclosure was about. And by the way, the disclosure was about something that she said and somebody felt like politically unsafe, and she just wanted to make sure that we knew that all political views were okay. Anyway, I was like, oh, all right, that's it. We had so many things going through our head because our brains hate missing information. So they're just going to fill in the blanks. So a donor hasn't responded. They're upset. In reality, they're busy. They're on vacation. A friend doesn't call you back. Oh, they don't like me or there's something wrong. Maybe they're asleep, right? They haven't donated. They don't care, right? Like you don't hear from the donor. Oh, they mustn't care about us anymore. They're giving to somebody else. Your brain can really run away with these stories. The reality is they're overwhelmed. Okay, my employee seemed quiet. The story is maybe they're quitting. Maybe they're mad at me. Maybe something went wrong. Well, the reality is their kid's sick and they're really tired that day because they were up all night with a sick child. The story feels true because your nervous system created it, and it isn't necessarily true. It just feels true. Facts are observable. Stories are interpretive. So when the nervous system goes off, we tend to dismiss facts and really interpret stories. And this happens a lot when I work with organizations on crisis communication, because everyone's nervous system, not everyone, but this is a time when you are in crisis, especially a public PR crisis, when the nervous system can be highly activated all the time and emotions will run high and the stories will fill in quickly. So when you're in crisis, or maybe you had a tough year, a leader leaves, there's some transition struggles, these are times of high activation of your nervous system, and it can really be a struggle inside your organization because the stories are flying. When a client did a big reorg and how they moved the communications to under the fundraising, and that was really disruptive, and the people started to feel unsafe, like they were losing something bad was going to happen, and that when that nervous system gets activated, the stories start to fly. Then the next part of it is that sometimes we become hypervigilant because that feels like the responsible thing to do. The responsible thing was keep checking in with my friend, keep checking in with my son, because I was worried. right? And that hypervigilance felt like the responsible thing. Hypervigilance can look like this: being prepared, being really, really prepared, being caring, being productive, being responsible, being strategic. Okay, but these sound like good things, and they can be. And yet, if we're doing them because we want to calm our nervous system, right, it's not going to work, because there is no such thing as certainty. So if you are constantly, checking emails, right? Oh, I'm refreshing text, over following up, over explaining. You're reading into silence. You're constantly filling in blanks. You're trying to control outcomes. So you think that being extra caring, extra productive, extra responsible will help you, calm you, and help you face certainty. But that really isn't it, because that really wasn't the problem. It's your nervous system just searching for certainty. And as we know, certainty and control are illusions. Those aren't things that actually happen. Those are things that we want to create. And so we wind up overworking, overdoing, over everything to calm the nervous system. But that's a feeling, it's not a fact. And so if you can look and see where you're hypervigilant, what are you monitoring that doesn't really actually require monitoring? Right? Your nervous system will not allow itself to calm down, or you feel like it won't. So sometimes when people go on vacation, they get nervous. Their nervous system gets activated because when they're away from the office, they're afraid that if they leave the office, somebody else is going to do their job better. Or what if nobody misses them? Or what if it goes fine without them? They're going to get that nervous system activated and start making up stories. And so they become hypervigilant on vacation, checking emails constantly, checking texts constantly, because that's what their nervous system is telling them to do. We're in a place where we may lose something, and we can't lose. We have to keep it. So instead of relaxing on vacation, you're the one who's checking the phone, checking the emails, because you're afraid, because your nervous system has taught you to not tolerate uncertainty. And I hope this is ringing true as I say this to you, because this could really be a game changer if you find yourself in hypervigilance, because you may not need that. And so just hang with me and listen and see where this takes you, because this is where we make the shift. Because if it's not the nervous system, if it's not hypervigilance, then what is it? Trust. Trust is how we hold uncertainty. Creating certainty does not calm. Trust calms. There will always be uncertainty. We know this. I am a lady of a certain age. I am a lady of a certain age, okay? Trust. I have seen a lot of things, right? I've been through it all. I've been through so much uncertainty. Wars, housing crisis, economy, good, bad, everything in between. There is no such thing as when things calm down. That's just not a thing that happens. We think, when there's more certainty, I will move. But that's not a thing. That's an illusion. What makes us move forward is trust. People think trust removes uncertainty. It doesn't. It increases our ability to tolerate uncertainty. This is true in any aspect of our life. In marriage, in friendship, leadership, fundraising, parenting, business. Trust doesn't say, I know what will happen. Trust says, I believe we'll handle whatever happens. And if you are a leader that can create trust and a trusting atmosphere, and when I talk about building a community of support, of trusting your donors, trusting your supporters, that they'll be by your side when you need them. You believe you'll handle whatever happens. In my marriage, right, our house right now, my husband has a job with kind of a shaky future, but we're going to trust that things will be okay. In friendships, I don't have to check in on my friend every day. Do you still like me? 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 I trust that Jim likes me. Jim's liked me for 40 years. We've been friends since we were 19. I don't have to text him every day and say, do you still like me, Jim? He does. I trust that. In leadership, we can trust the people around us. We can trust the people under us. We can trust our board members. We don't have to be constantly checking in. With our kids, that could be the hardest one, but we'll handle whatever happens. I remember Foster and Adoptive Care Coalition during the COVID, when everything was uncertain, they said, can you help us? And people showed up and showed out. And it really taught them so that they can trust that they have a community of support. I had a masterclass with my long-term coaching program, and we were talking about this exact topic. And there's a couple of people that organizations are in a bit of a financial, you could call it crisis or uncertainty. And they both said, we unexpectedly got some gifts. And wow, we're getting this, we're going to get this loan or whatever. Like, the financial opportunities were coming their way. Like, hey, look what happens, guys, when you build a community of support. They will show up for you. In my own life, I have a community of support. Remember a couple years ago when I went down with the flu the day of my big event and I couldn't literally host my event? What happened? My community of support showed up and I trusted them to do the job. It wouldn't have done it like I did it, but it got done. So that's the trust, and that is the biggest thing. And trust is a practice. It's something that we cultivate. It's building a trust muscle. Again, it doesn't create certainty. It doesn't wash away uncertainty. It helps us navigate uncertainty. And the more trusting people we have around us, the better off we can, the better we can navigate uncertain times. Now, here's the next part. I believe this is part 5, but regulation creates influence. The most influential people aren't the loudest. They're the most regulated. And this is something I practice and I cultivate. And this is why this topic is so important to me, because people may not even consciously realize they're just running around with ignited nervous systems. And they're thinking that all these intrusive thoughts, that all of the craziness is true. All the stories are true, right? They're not understanding that it's their nervous system just designed to keep them safe. It's okay. And so when you meet a regulated leader, your whole body relaxes, because remember, nervous system is contagious, right? So your whole body relaxes. When you're regulated, you can listen, you stay curious, you ask questions, you remain creative, because when we're dysregulated, we're about safety. Regulation means we can open ourselves up to new possibilities. We can think strategically, we can stay compassionate, and my favorite, of course, we can release the outcome. We can let go of the result. Regulated leader is a calming, confident leader. Now, it's not that my nervous system isn't going to fire off, okay? I just told you about the letter I got a couple of days ago that literally my knees buckled. And I understood what was happening, and I was able to regulate. So it's not like it's never going to happen. It's just that I understand what's happening, and I allow it to move through my body. And I don't have to make decisions based on that first burst of information. Right? So when we are a regulated leader, we can listen, we can be curious, we can release the outcome. When we're dysregulated, it looks like chasing, pushing, avoiding, withdrawing. It looks like trying to get control. It looks like, being defensive. So an influential leader, this is the Influential Nonprofit Podcast, an influential leader is regulated, because when I'm regulated, it allows me to access all of those possibilities of creative problem solving, strategic thinking, and all of that. Now, when I was working with my son, the first question that I would ask when he became disruptive and we needed to have a conversation was, am I regulated? Is he regulated? And a lot of times, let's say something happens, right? Somebody texts you something and it upsets you. That may not be the time to respond. You can always just take a breath, walk away, right? You don't, if that email and your first reaction is hit reply, blah, blah, da, 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 you can take a breath and wait till you're regulated. And I'm very strategic with people, with the people in my life that I love, about when I will bring forward a topic. I wait for it's a good time for them, not always a good time for me. Okay? Because I can sense that they're regulated and open, and then that would be a good time. Now, if you're in a conversation with somebody, sometimes this can be hard, and that's okay. And we're gonna work on how to deal with that in a minute. Like, just know, right, that for this section, the point is that when you're regulated, good things can happen. When you're dysregulated, chances are whatever happens next won't be that productive. All right, I'm going to say this one more time, but formally now. Nervous systems are contagious. One regulated person can calm a whole room, right? One dysregulated leader can activate an entire organization. And I bet you felt this. I bet you know exactly what this feels like. The release, the calm, like, oh, thank God. There's just, or this person like, oh, now everything's on guard and everything changed. As leaders, we communicate more than information, okay? We communicate emotional safety, and your nervous system becomes a part of your leadership. We communicate emotional safety. It's more than information. So that we are regulated allows others to be too. When you're coming in the office and it's rush, and it's crisis, and it's this and this and this, because you're trying to create certainty, you're hypervigilant, that is contagious, and other people are picking up on that. I was asked once many years ago by a CEO to say, my staff are often short with each other. They aren't very kind to each other sometimes, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And after spending some time and doing some coaching, I said to the leader, you're setting the emotional temperature here. They're taking your vibe. And that wasn't received really well. And that's okay. Let me explain. They said to me, hey, can you make my people nicer to each other? And I said, let me look into it. Then I came back and said, when you're nicer to them, they will be nicer to each other. And that wasn't the answer they were looking for. And that's okay. You set the temperature. Now, me today, knowing what I know, because this was about 7 or 8 years ago, me today would say, let's talk about you first. I wouldn't even entertain going to the team, because ultimately I know now that the leader sets the emotional temperature. And if people aren't being nice to each other, we look and say, well, what kind of temperature am I setting? What kind of dysregulation am I modeling that people are so dysregulated? Their nervous system is so lit up all day that they are snapping at each other, right? Because that's the hypervigilance of it all. Your nervous system's contagious. That's the bottom line. Okay. Now let's talk about regulation and co-regulation, because we really weren't meant to regulate alone. Healthy relationships help to regulate us. A trusted friend, a spouse. I was dreading telling my husband about how much it would cost to fix our porch, the trim on our porch, and I was just dreading it. I was dysregulated about it, but he was like, oh yeah, that seems reasonable. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all that angst. And he was like, that seems reasonable, because he is a calm, regulated person. I also waited for the right time. I realized like, maybe this isn't the time to tell him. I was waiting for him to be regulated. But a spouse, a coach, a mentor, a donor, a board chair. It's not, I need you to be okay so I can be okay. It's your steadiness helps me remember that I'm steady, right? Your groundedness helps me find my groundedness. And so when you surround yourself with regulated people who ground themselves, who bring, who bring trust into your life, you find it much easier to regulate. when you're surrounded by people who are constantly moving you into this regulation, right? So you're thinking they're firing, you're firing off it all the time. Like it can be harder to regulate because it feels like there's so many threats coming at you. Right? If you have, if you're in a difficult relationship, if you, have some contentious board members, it can, I'm not saying it can be hard. I can say that co-regulation, it can be helpful. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. And also, co-regulation means when your steadiness helps me to remember my own. Not when you're okay, I'm okay, but that I can be a model for steadiness and groundedness and regulation. Now, here's the most interesting part of all of this that I think we as communicators, as fundraisers, as leaders could really use to understand is trust doesn't require constant contact. Healthy relationships develop natural rhythms, right? In my life, one of the things that has really helped me, especially when I was going through this very traumatic experience with my family, with my son a few years ago, is to have rhythms to relationships. So I do Tuesday trivia. I have a happy hour once a month with my friends. We're called The Herd. We've been a group of friends for decades, and we lost a couple of members unexpectedly. We had a friend die really unexpectedly, and we decided that we wanted to take care of our relationships in a more intentional way. So we do this second Thursday of the month happy hour. You can do weekly coffees, quarterly donor meetings. Reliable rhythms help create safety. Constant communication doesn't. And this is where it can be tricky because as a fundraiser, that you're going to want to constantly reach out, right? But it's like, I just gave you the example of Jim. Are you my friend? Are you still my friend? Are you still my friend? What the donor hears is, do you still like us? 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 Rather than creating rhythms. So predictability regulates the nervous system far more effectively than intensity. So when you can develop a regular relationship, like any good relationship has a rhythm to it, that when you develop these rhythms, so your donor knows you're going to be checking in quarterly, and that's just something you do, and that's the rhythm to the relationship. It becomes predictable, and people can relax into it. All right, so here's some questions that can really support you and help you regulate and come from a place of calm, confident regulation. One is when you're activated, you can ask, what am I observing? What story am I creating? What would trust do next? And then stop and breathe. And I want you to respond instead of react. And I'm going to go through this again because I would love for you to start integrating this into your world, into your life. When you get activated, ask, what am I observing? What is happening right now? A letter came in the mail. What story am I creating? That something horrible is inside that envelope that's going to ruin our lives somehow. Right? What would trust do next? Pause, breathe, open the envelope. And I said, oh, there we go, right? But I was observing my nervous system going off, right? I was observing. So when I was working with a friend and I didn't hear from them, what's the story I'm observing? I'm not hearing from them. Something awful must have happened, right? I'm observing my nervous system going off and I'm being hyper aware that they're not responding. What story am I creating? Something awful has happened and I just don't know about it. And what would trust do next? Pause, breathe, give them time to respond. When you have a trusting relationship with anyone, with a colleague, with a partner, with a friend, with a donor, right, then you can let trust lead. So I trust that they will come tell me what's going on when it's a good time for them to tell me. I trust that the donor cares unless they tell me they don't, right? Like, we're going to respond instead of react, because what happens is that we just become a daily bundle of dysregulated reactions. And I know you probably know people who function like this. And let me tell you, it is exhausting to be in a constant state of dysregulation and to constantly feel like you're battling it from other people. So because it's just react, and we're all just sort of reacting to each other. So we want to respond instead of react. You don't need a different personality. You need better scripts. You don't need more confidence. You need a nervous system that no longer mistakes uncertainty for danger. Because when your nervous system settles, you stop chasing, you stop controlling, you stop predicting catastrophe, and you start leading from trust instead of fear. And isn't that such a better place to be, right? I tell people all the time, you can make up a story. If you can make up a story that there's no money, you can make up a story that there's money. You're connecting to it. It's all coming, it's all there for you. It is, I would tell people for years, right? Speak the unspoken. Like that's what courageous communication is all about. It's understanding, praise, and criticism. It's standing in your value. And yet that can feel really dangerous. That can feel really scary. And when our nervous system goes off, we might not pick up the phone call to call the donor because we're afraid, because our nervous system is keeping us from danger. We might lose something. What if I lose? What if I get rejected? So we don't make the call. We feel our heart racing. But here's this thing is, you're gonna get disrupted. That's not the thing. The thing is how you find your way home. And that we're not making decisions from the disruption. We're making the decisions from the regulated place. So we're gonna work through it, and then when we get to regulation, then we can decide. And sometimes you just have to call the donor even when your heart is racing a little more quickly, because the more you practice it, right, the less scary it'll be. And then when you get to that place of regulation, then it's okay. One of my colleagues says he makes 5 calls a day because by the 5th one, he's okay. And I understand what he's saying without using the language. What I interpreted that to be is my nervous system is lit up for the first 5 calls, but after that, I calm down, I'm regulated, and I just keep making the calls, and now there's no stopping me. And that could be something like that you could value as well is, yeah, the first couple are scary because I know my nervous system is just trying to keep me safe, and I am safe. It is okay. I'm calling a donor. And then you're going to call that, and then by that practice, you get regulated. Again, regulation is a practice. People tell me all the time, you have amazing energy. Yes, and this is by design. This is by intention. This is something I cultivate and that I work to be regulated. I said, not that I don't have my moments, but I understand what's happening and I find my way back and I make decisions from that place. All right, I would love to know what you think about this. I would love to know how you feel about how regulated you are as a leader. If you want to talk with me more, there's always a link in the show notes. Please feel free to book a call with me. I'm happy to dive into this deeper with you. And also, we can talk about how you can put more strategies in your life to be a more regulated, calm, confident, and influential leader. And that's it for me and this episode of The Influential Nonprofit. We'll see you next time.